She was forced to marry an outlaw, until a Comanche warrior fought for her and changed her fate. The twin sons of Red Mesa beat down relentlessly on the dry, red dust of the frontier colony. Wind tore across the rocky plains carrying fine grains that stung like tiny needles against exposed skin. In this harsh, lawless world, survival was not for the weak. Yet even in such a cruel place, humans endured. They adapted, they learned, and they fought. And among them was Dr. Alara Voss, a woman whose mind was sharper than any blade. Alara had arrived on Red Mesa 6 months ago, a specialist in alien flora and fauna. Her mission was simple: catalog the strange plants that had begun growing in the colony's mining zones. Yet what should have been a quiet scientific task turned dangerous the moment she stepped onto the frontier. The colony's security was weak, overrun by mercenaries and criminals. Among them, none was more feared than Cale Darren, a man whose reputation spread like wildfire. His crimes were legendary. He had built an empire through fear, kidnapping and forcing women to marry him to maintain control over the scattered settlements. He ruled not with kindness, but with intimidation and violence. Alara never imagined she would cross paths with such a man. She had lived a life of science and study, far from politics and cruelty. Yet one afternoon, as she gathered samples near the canyon's edge, she heard the sound of approaching hovercraft engines. They were not colony security. They never patrolled these parts. The engines roared closer, then stopped. Dust swirled around her as a group of armed men emerged. "Alara Voss!" a voice barked. She looked up, squinting through the sun, and saw him. Cale Darren. Broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a scar running down his left cheek, he moved with the confidence of a predator who believed the world belonged to him. "Bye, you have something we want," he said, his voice low and sharp. I don't understand," Alara replied, stepping back. She felt the sudden chill of fear crawling along her spine. Her scientific tools were useless against men with blasters. Cale smiled, a cruel twist of lips. "Don't play smart with me, Doctor. You're coming with me. I have plans for you." Before she could react, his men restrained her. The hovercraft carried her away, dust swirling in its wake, leaving Red Mesa's twin suns blazing over the empty canyon. The cell was small and dark. Metal walls reflected no light, and the air smelled of oil and sweat. Alara's hands shook as she examined her surroundings. A single cot, a small basin of water, and a barred window high above the floor were all that filled the space. She had been captured, yet even as fear gripped her, her mind raced for a solution. Cale Darren was dangerous, yes, but humans had a way of surviving impossible odds. They had colonized countless worlds, survived crashes in asteroid fields, and fought creatures that defied imagination. And if humans could do that, then maybe she could find a way out. She began observing. Cale's men followed patterns, shift changes, meal times, weapon inspections. There were blind spots, moments when the cell was empty for a minute or two. She memorized every detail. Her captor, Cale, visited twice a day. The first time, he was all smiles and charm, a predator testing his prey. "You're not like the others," he said, pacing slowly in front of her. "You're smart, clever. That could be useful if you play along." "I am not interested in your games," Alara said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I'm not one to obey outlaws." Cale laughed. "Obey? Oh, you will. Or you'll suffer the consequences. But for now, I'm patient. You will learn that eventually. Days passed. Elara spent hours examining the small items in her cell, searching for anything she could use. A shard of metal became a tool. A piece of cloth became a rope. She noted the guards' habits, their routines, and the weaknesses in Kale's system. Every observation added to a growing plan. In the nights, she stared at the stars through the small window. Red Mesa's sky was a strange sight. Twin suns burned orange and gold, and faint trails of alien constellations stretched across the heavens. She thought about Earth, about the libraries she had studied in, and the life she had once known. Her heart ached, but she refused to despair. Humans survive because they fought, because they refused to give up. She would survive too. Meanwhile, somewhere across Red Mesa, Dakota rode swiftly across the plains. His horse-like rover kicked up clouds of red dust as he navigated the jagged terrain. He was known across the frontier colonies as a warrior of incredible skill, descended from the Comanche bloodline, trained in both ancient traditions and modern technology. But more than that, he was a man who stood for justice, for freedom, for those who could not fight for themselves. Dakota had heard rumors of Cale Darren's cruelty. Colonists whispered about the women he kidnapped, about the way he ruled through fear. He had made a promise to protect the helpless, and now he knew his path led him to El Vas. He slowed his rover as he neared a canyon, sensing the presence of human life, trapped, hidden. He scanned the terrain with his enhanced visor, noting every movement, every shadow. Humans could survive in this world, but only if they were clever, if they could adapt. And this one Elara, he could tell already, had the mind of a survivor. Back in Cale's compound, Elara's plan began to take shape. She had observed a blind spot near the air vent, a section of the wall that wasn't reinforced. She had fashioned a small tool from metal shards, capable of unscrewing the vent cover silently. She tested her plan in her mind, over and over, calculating timing, angles, and contingencies. Yet even as she prepared to act, she knew she couldn't do it alone. She needed help. Somehow she needed a human ally who understood more than brute force, someone who could fight, but also think, someone who would risk themselves for justice. And unknown to her, that ally was already on his way. The days blurred together. Cale grew impatient with her silence and her refusal to obey. "You're clever," he said one evening, "but cleverness without strength gets you nowhere. You will see that soon enough." Elara did not reply. She merely waited, observing, calculating. Humans had faced worse. She reminded herself of the stories her father had told her about Earth's pioneers, about explorers and scientists who had faced impossible odds. She would be one of them. She would survive. At night, she lay on the cot, listening to the hum of machinery and the distant howls of Red Mesa's alien wildlife. She imagined a canyon, windswept and vast, where a warrior might ride, searching for those in need. And in that image, she found hope. By the end of the week, she had mapped every guard rotation, every routine, every weakness in Cale's fortress. She could escape, but not without help. And in the distance, across the burning plains of Red Mesa, Dakota pressed onward, sensing that his mission had begun. Humans survived because they adapted. They fought because they believed in something greater than themselves. And Elara Vas, brilliant and determined, would survive. She would fight. And perhaps, just perhaps, she would find an ally who could turn the tide. For on Red Mesa, the harsh frontier world, humanity's spirit was unbroken, and in the darkest moments, that spirit could light the way to freedom. The wind howled across the Red Mesa plains, carrying red dust that clung to everything it touched. The sun scorched the metal roofs of Cale Darren's compound, making the walls shimmer in the heat. Inside the fortress, Elara Voss crouched behind the cold metal bars of her cell, her heart pounding with cautious hope. Today would be different. She could feel it in her bones. After days of careful observation, she had mapped every guard rotation, every weak point in the walls, and every small opening that might give her a chance. Her tool, a simple piece of twisted metal she had sharpened and hidden in the folds of her clothes, was ready. She would escape. She took a deep breath, steadying her shaking hands. Her mind ran through the plan again. Wait for the moment when the guard left his post, slip through the shadows, unscrew the vent cover, and climb into the narrow shaft that led outside. Every detail mattered. One mistake could mean capture, or worse. Outside the fortress, Takota's rover hummed over the red dust of the plains. He had tracked Tail Darren for weeks, following the trail of destruction left by the outlaw and his men. Takota's eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and unyielding. The colonists' warnings had led him here. A scientist, a woman held captive by Kyle, a life worth saving. Takota slowed as he neared the canyon where Elara had been captured. He knew the terrain better than anyone, its jagged rocks, narrow ravines, and hidden paths. Using his visor, he mapped out Kael's compound from a distance, noting the positions of guards, turrets, and patrol drones. The fortress looked impenetrable, but humans had a way of fighting against impossible odds. And he was a human. Back in the cell, Elara heard the familiar metallic footsteps of the guard approaching. She flattened herself against the wall, holding her breath. The guard stopped, glanced around the room, then began inspecting the cell bars. Elara waited until his back was turned. Now, she slipped the metal tool into the vent cover screws, twisting them silently. The cover loosened slowly, each movement deliberate. Her fingers ached, but she didn't stop. She could feel her pulse hammering in her ears, the sound of danger in every heartbeat. Finally, the vent cover fell into place with a soft clatter. She pressed herself against the wall, listening for the guard. Silence. Carefully, she squeezed into the narrow shaft, pulling herself forward inch by inch. Dust filled her lungs, her arms burned, but she kept moving. Humans survived through determination, through willpower, and she had both. Takota crouched behind a boulder near the edge of the canyon, watching. He had observed the compound for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to act. His visor flickered as it detected a faint movement near the vent of the fortress. His eyes narrowed. That movement, small, precise, careful, belonged to a human brave enough to escape. He moved silently, a shadow among the rocks, positioning himself near the outer walls. If the woman needed help, he would be ready. Takota knew that in Red Mesa danger came swiftly, and those who hesitated often did not survive. Elara's hands scraped along the metal walls of the vent as she climbed higher, her muscles burning with effort. She paused, listening. The compound was quiet, the guard distracted by a routine inspection. One more turn, one more step, and she would be outside. Freedom was within reach. Suddenly, a sound, a soft crunch of gravel, made her freeze. Someone was approaching. Her heart jumped. Could it be a guard returning? Or something else? Before she could react, a shadow moved across the vent opening. A man's hand, strong and steady, grabbed her wrist, pulling her into a narrow side passage that led outside the compound walls. "Elara Voss?" a calm, low voice asked. She stared at the man wide-eyed. He was tall, strong, with dark hair and piercing eyes that seemed to see through the dust and heat. His presence radiated confidence, danger, and determination.
Yes, she whispered, still stunned. Who?
Who are you? Someone who fights for people like you, he replied. I'm Takoda. You're coming with me. The sound of alarms suddenly rang through the compound. Kale's men had noticed the vent was tampered with. Red lights flashed along the walls, signaling a breach. Alara's mind raced. We have to move. They'll find us in seconds. Takoda didn't hesitate. He grabbed a compact blaster from his belt and fired, taking out a turret that had just aimed at the vent exit. The shot was precise, silent, and deadly. Humans survived through ingenuity, through courage, and through action. He gestured for Alara to follow, and they ran across the rocky terrain, the alarms behind them. Guards shouted and fired blasters, but Takoda's knowledge of the canyon gave them an advantage. They moved through narrow paths, over jagged rocks, and under natural arches, staying just out of reach of their pursuers. Alara stumbled, her legs weak from climbing the vent, but Takoda caught her. Keep moving, he urged. You're stronger than you think. Humans had survived worse than this. She reminded herself of Earth's pioneers, of explorers and scientists who had faced danger and uncertainty. She was alive, she was free, or she could be if she kept moving. They reached a high ridge overlooking the compound. From there, the entire fortress was visible, its walls towering and unyielding. Red lights flickered like warning beacons, and shadows of guards moved along the perimeter. Alara, Takoda said, his voice steady. Do you see those patrols? We can't go down the main path. We'll have to use the ravine. Follow me exactly. She nodded, trust forming in her heart. Humans had survived through cooperation, through shared effort. She had found an ally. The ravine was a dangerous place. Sharp rocks jutted out from the walls, and the red dust made footing unstable. One misstep could mean falling hundreds of feet to jagged cliffs below. But Takoda led with precision, moving as if he had done this 1,000 times. Alara followed, her fear giving way to focus. Halfway through, a patrol spotted them. Blaster fire streaked across the canyon, cutting through dust and air. Takoda grabbed Alara and pushed her into a narrow crevice, shielding her with his body. Humans survive through strategy, not just strength, he muttered. From there he directed small shots, disabling a few guards without being seen. Alara watched in awe. Humans adapted, learned, and used their environment. She realized that even in the darkest, most dangerous places, courage and intelligence could turn the tide. They moved for hours, never resting, until the fortress was only a distant silhouette against the setting suns. Red Mesa glowed like fire in the horizon, dust swirling in the wind. Alara's arms and legs ached, but she had survived. Takoda led her to a hidden cave, a safe spot he had discovered while scouting the canyon. Inside, the air was cool, the walls shadowed. For the first time in days, Alara could breathe without fear. You saved me, she said, her voice soft, filled with gratitude and wonder. We save each other, Takoda replied. Humans survive because we help one another. You have courage, intelligence, and heart. Those are stronger than any weapon. Alara smiled faintly. Humans had survived impossible odds on countless worlds, and now she understood that she was part of something bigger. Not just surviving, but fighting, adapting, and winning. Outside, the twin suns dipped lower, painting the desert red and gold. Kale's shouts echoed faintly from the distance, but the humans he pursued had vanished. One scientist and one warrior. Together they were stronger than fear, stronger than bullets, stronger than any outlaw. Ellara studied Dakota, seeing not just a fighter, but a human who embodied what she had always believed: courage, intelligence, and honor. She realized that their fates were now intertwined, and that together they could challenge even the darkest threats Red Mesa had to offer. The wind howled through the canyon, but it no longer carried fear. It carried hope. Humans survived because they adapted. Humans survived because they fought. And humans survived because they never gave up. Ellara Voss and Dakota had survived today, and tomorrow they would fight back. Word count. Approximately 1610 words if you like. I can now write part 3 next in the same length, style, and pace, where Ellara and Dakota infiltrate Kyle's inner sanctum, uncover the secret of the alien artifacts, and plan their first major counterattack. Do you want me to continue with part 3? Perfect! Here's part 3 in the same style, simple English, around 1600 words, continuing the story where part 2 left off. This part focuses on infiltration, uncovering KL's secret, and building tension. Part 3, part of the outlaw's lair. The hidden cave was small but safe. Its walls glowed faintly from the reflected light of Red Mesa's twin suns outside, and a cool breeze swept in through a crack at the far end. Ellara Voss sat cross-legged, tending to the scrapes and bruises she had earned during the escape. Dakota crouched nearby, cleaning his blaster and checking the energy cells. Despite the danger they had just survived, neither of them spoke much. Words were unnecessary. Each understood the other's strength. Outside, the wind howled like a warning across the red plains. Kaledarin's fortress loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the dying sun. He had no idea that his prized captive had escaped, but soon he would find out. Ellara finally spoke, her voice quiet but determined. "We need to go back," she said. "We can't just run. He's dangerous, but he's also hiding something. I saw his equipment. Something he's trying to keep secret. If we can expose it, the colony could be safe." Dakota raised an eyebrow. "You want to return to his fortress?" "Yes," she said firmly. "We need a plan. He's trafficking alien artifacts, powerful energy sources. If he succeeds, he could destroy the colonies. And if we wait, innocent people will suffer. I can help us get in. I know the weaknesses in his defenses." Dakota studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You're brave and clever."
Humans survive through courage and intelligence. Very well.
"We go back, but we do this carefully. One mistake, and it could be our last." The plan took shape quickly. Ellara had memorized every patrol, every turret, every guard rotation. Dakota had the skills to move unseen, striking only when necessary. Together, they would infiltrate Kale's inner sanctum and uncover the truth. Under the cover of night, they moved out. Dakota's rover hummed softly, dust rising in low clouds as they approached the outskirts of the fortress. Using shadows and natural terrain, they avoided the patrolling guards. Their eyes moved constantly, scanning, calculating, adjusting. Humans had survived worse than this. They had crossed space, survived hostile planets, and adapted to impossible odds. Tonight, they would survive again. The walls of Kale's inner sanctum were higher and stronger than the outer fortifications. Sensors and automated drones scanned every inch, searching for movement. Ellara studied the patterns, whispering instructions to Dakota. See that section of the wall? She asked. The sensors there reset every 90 seconds. We move in the blind spot. After that, the vent system will take us close to the central chamber. It's risky, but it's the only way. Dakota nodded. Lead the way. Elara crawled first, moving silently through the vent shaft, Dakota following close behind. The metal walls scraped against their clothing, but they kept moving. Outside, the fortress hummed with activity, unaware that its most important secret was being approached by humans determined to stop it. The vent led them to a narrow maintenance corridor. They dropped silently to the floor, careful not to make a sound. In front of them was the heart of the fortress, Kale's inner sanctum. Lights flickered along the walls, and faint humming echoed from the alien artifacts stored inside. Elara's eyes widened. The artifacts were small, metallic, and pulsing with an eerie blue energy. She had never seen anything like it before. From her studies of alien materials, she recognized the energy signature. It was unstable, volatile, and extremely dangerous. If he activates these, she whispered, he could destroy half the colony. Dakota looked at her, his expression unreadable. We stop him, tonight. They moved carefully through the corridors, avoiding guards and bypassing security cameras. Every step required patience and focus. The human mind could adapt, and theirs were working perfectly together. Elara with her knowledge, Dakota with his instincts and combat skills. Finally, they reached the control room, a large chamber filled with consoles, blinking lights, and the artifacts secured in reinforced containers. Cale Darren was there, standing over a console, examining data on his holographic display. Elara, he said without turning, his voice sharp and mocking. I knew you'd try something foolish. And you brought a friend. How quaint. Elara stepped forward, keeping her voice calm. We're here to stop you, Cale. You can't control these artifacts. You don't understand the power you're playing with. Cale laughed, spinning to face them. His eyes were cold, filled with anger. You think you can stop me? You're clever, yes, but cleverness without strength is useless. Dakota stepped beside Elara, placing a hand on the hilt of his weapon. Humans survive because we adapt, because we fight, and because we never give up. Cale's men entered the chamber, alerted by the sound of movement. Blaster fire erupted, sparks flying as energy bolts struck the walls. Elara ducked behind a console, her mind racing. She had memorized the layout, every power conduit, every weak point. If she could disable the energy sources, they might have a chance. Using a portable tool, she hacked into the console controlling the artifacts. The screens flickered, alarms blared, but she kept going. Dakota engaged Cale's men, moving with precision and strength, taking them down silently and efficiently. Humans survived because they adapted, and together they were unstoppable. Finally, Elara found the control sequence that would secure the artifacts. Her fingers flew over the keys, overriding Cale's commands. The artifacts powered down, their dangerous blue glow fading to a harmless pulse. Cale roared in frustration, rushing toward her, but Dakota intercepted him, blocking his path. The fight was brutal, a test of strength, skill, and willpower. Humans survived through courage, and tonight, courage was on their side. In the chaos, Elara noticed a hidden compartment in the floor. Inside were documents and data drives detailing Cale's plans, smuggling operations, weapon shipments, and his attempt to destabilize the colony using alien energy. The evidence was crucial. She grabbed the drives, tucking them into her bag. "This will stop him," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Dakota nodded. "Now we leave." They moved quickly through the corridor, leaving Kale's inner sanctum behind. Alarms blared, and guards pursued them, but the humans had the advantage. They knew the terrain, they knew the weaknesses, and they had each other. Humans survived by working together, and their teamwork was perfect. Outside, Red Mesa's twin suns had nearly set, painting the desert sky in shades of red, orange, and gold. Alara and Dakota paused briefly, catching their breath. The fortress was behind them, but KL was still alive, and the fight was not over. "We've slowed him down," Alara said, holding the data drives. "But he'll come after us. We need allies, more people to help." Dakota nodded, scanning the horizon. "We'll find them. Humans survive because we stand together. The colonists will rise. They will fight back." Alara looked at him, understanding the truth in his words. Humans survived not because of power or weapons, but because of courage, intelligence, and unity. And tonight, they had proven that even against impossible odds, humans could triumph. They began moving toward a safe place Dakota had scouted earlier, a network of caves far from the fortress, where they could rest, plan, and prepare for the next battle. Red Mesa was dangerous, but they were ready. Together they could face Kale Darren, and together they could protect the colony. The twin suns disappeared below the horizon, leaving the desert in darkness. But Alara and Dakota carried their own light, the light of human ingenuity, courage, and determination. And in the darkness of Red Mesa, that light burned brighter than any danger they faced. Humans survived because they adapted. Humans survived because they fought. Humans survived because they never gave up. And tonight, they had survived again.